Hi, and welcome to the In the Cortex podcast. We are your hosts,
I'm Danielle Periconi.
and I'm Paloma Garcia, and we are the founders of In the Cortex, an online community with programs that show people the tools they need to change their lives through brain reorganization. No medication, just movement.
And when you get your brain out of survival mode and regulate your nervous system, you start to live in the fun, logical part of the brain, the cortex. Subscribe today and learn how to live your best in the cortex life. And now on to today's episode.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the In the Cortex podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Paloma. This is Danielle. Hi, Danielle. Today, we're going to be talking about our programming and how strong the programming is that we get from society, from our parents, from things that we've lived through, and how it really does shape the way that we look at everything. And we really wanted to talk about this because we've been talking about this week, talking about, the way that people look at school and the way that people look at parenting and the way we look at ourselves. And actually, right before we started recording, Danielle had a moment that was very just perfectly illustrated this. So please share.
100%. So it's funny because we were just trying to talk about how we're going to land this idea of the programming piece and how does it apply to everyday life. And then I was talking about like, oh yeah, we're about to hit record. And I was like, oh, I have no makeup on. I'm not even camera ready. And she's like, I love how you sent me a message last night saying we're recording the podcast and be camera ready. And I was like, that is so funny because I literally told you to do it and I didn't do it myself, which I'm catching myself do a lot lately.
Uh,
And it's good
too.
feedback. This is now
Yeah,
like
for
the
sure.
second time that this exact example of like telling someone to do something and then they do it and then I didn't. And I was like, oh, what's that? There's some programming there. But the other part was the realization was like, oh my gosh, I used to never be able to talk to people, go out in public, or be on a camera without having makeup on. And I just thought that was like so funny and realized like, oh my gosh, where did that even come from? Programming. And
Programming.
my son yesterday, he was actually really anxious and like, let's go, mom, hurry up, let's go. We got to get to school because he always likes to get early so we can get there early so we can play.
Play, of
And
course.
he's like, you don't need makeup. Cause I was like, oh, I still need to go finish getting ready. And he's like, you don't need it. Like, you're fine. I was like, oh, are you saying I'm beautiful naturally? And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. Let's go. Like, obviously he doesn't care. And I was like sitting there going, wow, that's so funny. And then I was like, oh, but I do have a meeting later. I was like, I'm just going to put all the touches on. And I'm like, like I needed to put on mascara. And I was like, but this is actually crazy. Like just the idea of wearing makeup in general. Like,
Girl,
what?
I think, and it's so funny because we'll go back to that, but I had the opposite programming for so long. So I used to love putting on makeup, blah, blah. And then I got to this moment where I was like mad at the world, probably mad at myself, as when I was in Spain and like a little bit before that, I was in New York too. I stopped wearing makeup completely. I wouldn't put anything on my face. And I was like, I'm pretty. Like, I don't need to put anything on, which is true. Like, good for you, girl. Right. But then it got to a point where it's like sometimes I would actively like look sick, like ill, then I wouldn't like put a little bit of blush here, you know what I mean? And so and it got to this point where I just stopped taking care of myself. My hair was a mess. My body, I gained so much weight. I literally went through a point where I hadn't looked at myself in the mirror in like a year probably.
So there's
And
the other side of the
so that's the
programming.
other
Yes.
side, right? So I went from one extreme to the
Fascinating.
other.
Which we
And
do.
right, which we always do. And it's funny because last year, 2025, I started wearing makeup again and I was like, "Oh, it's not that bad." Like it's not a bad thing to want to look cute, right? So
Mm-mm.
it's kind of this whole like it's just this balance. It's like why are you doing it is the main thing. Do you want to look in the mirror and say, "Cutie patootie, bye." If you can do
Mhm.
that without makeup one day, I do that all the time. Like yesterday, day before yesterday, I didn't wear anything. It was great. But sometimes you're like, I wanna give myself a little bit of this, a little bit of that,
Uh-huh.
whatever. And I think that's great. But I think when it comes to the point of like, oh, I have to wear it. If not, nobody can see me without my makeup. I think that's where you were feeling like you had to hide who you actually are and the way you actually look. And
Oh
that's
my
not cool. That's
god.
where the issue is, right?
Literally.
The issue is not in the
Yes.
makeup or on makeup
No.
because I also always think it's so cute that we humans put makeup on. We're like, "Oh, oh,
Paint my
I'm gonna go
face.
put my paint on my face," and, like, the fact that we,
Yeah.
like, get, like, dressed up when we go to, like, a party or something, we're like, "Oh, I gotta go put on my nice clo" like, we're so cute. How
Right.
adorable. The fact that we
That
put
is.
paint on our nails so that our hands look
Yeah.
prettier, like, that's adorable.
I
Or, like,
mean,
earrings
some
in
of
our
us
ears,
do.
come
Yeah.
on. It's so
Yeah.
cute. Like, it's
Well,
just
yeah.
adorable. Yeah.
It is adorable, and you think back to, like this actually is crazy. We should do a little history deep dive on this because I remember, like, the ancient Egyptians would, like,
Yeah.
decorate themselves, so I know it's a very cultural thing, right? But I do think that's where, again, finding the balance, and to be honest with you, my kids were just in right on cue. My kids were just in a little bit of a tiff this morning about a Lego situation. And again, coming back to the brain work, I was able just to stay so calm and so regulated. I was able to like first my daughter was upset because she did get a little bit of a pinch from her brother because he was frustrated that she touched his new Lego set that he just got. And so I can see where they both were coming from, but I calmed her down. And then I was sharing with my son, I was like, listen, Legos are great and they're really awesome. Just like playing a video game or watching TV or watching a movie is awesome. But when you become so hyper focused and obsessed about it, and if someone comes in and distracts you from it, and then your reaction is to be aggressive, that's where it's a problem. And it
Exactly.
comes back to balance. And so I was like, look at everything in nature. It's completely balanced. You have the sun and the moon, you have light and you have dark. And I just kept giving more examples of like how there's natural balance everywhere we go. But if you become so locked in, could you imagine if we just had the sun all the time or just the darkness all the time? And there are countries like Iceland when I went there once
Mhm.
and it was dark. It was light all the entire day. And I was like, this feels so weird. But in generally speaking, then in the offset of, Iceland in the summertime, then it's dark all winter. So that's a
Exactly.
very strong contrast of some
Yeah,
balance.
talk about contrast.
But my point is it's always about how do we go about life so there's balance. And that's what I just realized about talking about the makeup was I wasn't balanced before on accepting myself and
Mhm.
just being okay with who I was. And I know it's crazy because like Pamela Anderson right now is making headlines for not wearing makeup. And it's like that is what's getting a headline.
Yeah,
Are you kidding me? Like, they're like, "Way
ridiculous.
to embrace your natural beauty." They're like, "You go, girl. I'm not gonna do it." And it's like, what if all of us just started stepping into the space where, like, sometimes they wore it and sometimes they didn't, so it's no longer a headline. It's just a preference. It's just like a thing, right? Because it is such a society's way of programming us women that we have to look a special way in order to
Yeah,
be accepted, right?
yeah, and it's
So
funny because you don't even question it, like, sometimes people will wear their makeup the same way for 25, 30
yeah,
years, and they're maybe it doesn't even look that good anymore, right? But they're
right.
like, "Okay, gotta put it on, I gotta do my same exact routine,"
Yeah,
and so it
yeah.
becomes it's literally a mask that you're putting on against the
Yeah.
world, against society, against anybody judging you or looking at you, and it's I think it's the ultimate example of sometimes when you don't wear makeup and nobody notices, and then you do and nobody notices, you're like, "Oh, it's
No.
all the same thing." Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't really
yeah,
matter, but
yeah, yeah.
that's the point. Like, do it for
Mhm.
yourself when you wanna look a certain way, when you wanna wear this type of lipstick or this type of whatever, right? And I think that that's also, like, we all it's like the thing where you feel like you have a pimple on your forehead and you think
Yeah.
everybody's looking at the
Everyone's looking
pimple,
at it. And
and
they probably
so
are, but they don't care, right?
yeah, or they're not, like, sometimes like,
Yeah.
genuinely, so many times I have friends that'll be like, "Oh my god, please," or like in TikTok videos, people are like, "Please ignore the state of my hair," and you're like, "I
I didn't
didn't
even
look
look
at
at
your
it.
hair, I was listening to what you were saying," like,
Yeah.
so we do that thing where we gotta beat the other person, like, I'm aware that
Yeah.
there's something wrong with me, okay, so I'm telling you, and so I think the makeup is that thing too, right, where it's like, I know that there's something wrong with me, so I'm gonna be preemptive and put this thing on so that you don't tell me anything about it, right?
Yeah. And you're just not being authentic to who you really wanna be. But and I just had this thought come into my head of because I was like, wow, I really like just I'm gonna put some sunscreen on and walk outside and be super confident in who I am. I could have not done that. Like I didn't feel like I was able to be fully confident without putting on some mascara and like putting on some foundation. And now I'm like, I'm really in this space and I don't know if it's because I turned 40 and then I just turned 41 and I'm like hitting this different era of my life. But I'm really and I know I've done a ton of reconnects, and I'm like, I really don't care anymore. Like, I don't care to please you. It's the people pleasing era stuff. That
Yeah.
was like the codependency that really shifted my
Yes.
whole entire life. And I do think that that also transferred over at the same time to that's why I stopped participating in certain things that society accepted and think is great, like drinking, for example. Like, we're both sober,
Yeah.
and people often ask if we're sober because 'cause we're so silly. Like, they
Yeah.
actually think we're on something all the time, and I'm like, "We're on Live, Laugh, Love." Like, have you ever heard of
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
That's her
Never
line.
heard of it.
Um, and I just thought about, like, it's crazy that but I think collectively people are starting to shift this, so it's not just you and I talking about it. I do think that for you and I, it's become very effortless because we have the reconnects and tools to back and
Yeah.
support it. And
Yeah.
so that's where I see myself just stepping into more of an authentic version of who I wanna be and saying no to the people pleasing and also just questioning and being like, "Where did this program come from?
Where did this
Why?"
idea even come from? I think
Yeah.
that's the main thing, and that's, like, what we really wanna talk about today is, like, we have to question them because if not, we're just going through life with these programs and with these things that we don't even look at, and like you said, people really are looking at this stuff nowadays, which is amazing, and I do think that there's, like you said, there's truly, like, a revolution happening and people being like, "Whoa, this is amazing," right? And so I think it's so exciting to now look at your programs and be like, "Oh, I
Do I
never
want that?
thought of this that way." Like
Yeah.
today, I was at the preschool today with the kids, and we're literally in the middle of the forest. And so the whole activity today was to make mud
Mm,
and get in the mud and put their feet in the mud and their hands in the mud and everything in the mud. Like, and
fun.
and they actually found some mud before we even made it. They were like, "Mud City, baby." They were into it. And so the parents were like, "Oh, you're really gonna you're really gonna get dirty, you know?" And I was like, "Yeah, but that's the point, like, that's really why you signed them up for a forest preschool and not they're not sitting in a room with fluorescent lights on their face, right? And they're like, "Well, you're right. You're right." And I was like, "You probably have a change, right? Because this child is a year and a half." They're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, so maybe you can change them before you put them back in the car." "Oh, okay, yeah, you're right, it's fine." And the kids don't care, they're literally less than 2 years old, so they're like, "Whatever." But I think it's just this tiny little thing that how cool is it that they're giving this kid a different program already. Like, yeah, I get
Mm.
dirty and then I change. What's the big deal, right? Like, I know at least in Mexico,
Yeah.
it's a big thing to have the kids be like super, like their hair is always perfect
Put
and
together.
they're
Yeah.
they're really put together and they have these really cute outfits and like I think
Mhm.
in the US people don't care about that stuff as much because there is more
Depends.
of that like
Yeah.
depends definitely, but a
Yeah.
lot of people are more free with that. But in Mexico, people are like, oh, my kid has to be like perfect and like gel in the hair, like
Yeah.
this. And so I think, and it was cool to see his parents be like, "Oh, you're right. It's actually not that big of a deal because it's a kid."
Because yeah, and it looks because when we're walking around with our kids perfectly matched and monochromatic and all the
Yes.
things,
Oh my
like
gosh.
and I look at kids' outfits today, like some of them on, like, Instagram, I'm like, "Would that child pick that out of the closet? Absolutely not,"
No.
right? That is 100% the parent coming through and being like, "This is what you need to wear." I let my kids get dressed all the time because I
Oh
love
my
that they
god,
pick
yeah.
random stuff, but I used to care. I look back at their baby pictures, I was like, "Oh my gosh, their outfits were so cute."
Oh, yeah.
And now I look at them and I'm like, "Was that clean? Like,
Yeah.
was that a clean shirt, or are you just gonna put it on?" And I'm like, "But this is where they get to learn their self-expression." And just to speak on what you said about the parents, because I know that feeling, and I think the program here for parents is that we're so tired. And I wanna say you are so tired when your system is completely working harder than it needs to, and it's overworked, and I used to be the parent that was like, "No, don't get dirty because then that's more work
Yeah.
for me to have to clean
That's
you
it,
up and all this
exactly.
stuff, and I don't have the time and energy for that." The minute I was able to get myself out of survival and the minute I was able to actually start working through my programs of what's more important, having a clean, organized house or having a happy kid that got a lot of sensory experience, you know? And
Exactly.
and so when you start to really question your programs and question why you think this way, you're going to be surprised that, like, wait, these aren't serving me. They're not serving my kids. And this is not what I want to pass down to my kids. I catch myself
1,000%.
so many times and the minute of like giving my like amazing spiel to my kids of like why we don't do something. And then I hear like my mom and dad coming through and I'm like, and then I, like, immediately shrink back into, like, thinking of little Danny, and she was just like, "But guys, like, can't you just let me be? Like, just let me be a free kid, you know?
Yeah,
And so this is where we do have to just be so aware of what we're giving our kids because and not to the point where now you're hyper focused and now you're like, swinging the pendulum and you can't say anything, right? But it's because and I just had this thought yesterday. I texted it to you this morning where I was like or I had the thought this morning and I was like, "Man, instead of saying like that's a nice set of jeans that that kid got, wouldn't it be cool for like that's a nice set of programs that that person got?" Like
definitely.
that parent was so aware and mindful and was able to be so just and not cautious, but just mindful of what they were doing and saying so that way their kids had less work to do because let's be
1000%.
real. We've done a lot of work, man. Like, we've done a
Yeah,
lot of work on ourselves. This is no shade to our parents because they didn't know at the time, but let's make it easier for our future generations to not have to work until they're, like, 40 years old to be like, "I'm not gonna wear makeup now." Like, come on.
yeah, totally. But I do see that happening, like, and it's really,
Yes.
like, something that's shifting, and I think that as a group, that's also what helps us understand each other, right? So I think it's so easy to just go with the flow because that's what we're meant to do as animals is to kind of just go with the flow and join the
Mhm.
group, right? Like, you don't wanna stick out because then you're easy prey for the predators, right? We talk about this all the time. So it's, taking on these programs and these expectations from society. Society's expectations, baby, they're always there. We take them on because of that, and that's why we don't question them, and I think the difference that's happening now is that we start to question them, right? And some people don't, and that's fine
Mhm.
too, like, if you're
Yeah.
not ready to question it, don't question it. Go with live your
Yeah.
life, right?
Mhm.
And it's really cool that now we get to kind of, like, connect with people in a way that's much more authentic to everybody, right? So when you're starting to look at this stuff, then you're like, "Oh, wait, no, these are my programs. Wait, no,
Mhm.
these are my beliefs." And so you connect with other people that have those beliefs too, right? And like, doesn't mean you have to have 100% the exact same beliefs as everybody that you hang
Mhm.
out with. Actually, that would make for a very boring life because you wouldn't have any
Yeah.
contrast in anything different, right?
Exactly.
Some people do give more importance to one thing than the other, but I think that's where, like, taking it with a grain of salt is really important, like, anything that you
Mhm.
see that people are starting to do online, and this is important, for everybody, but especially for teenagers, for people that are starting to get kids that are starting to figure out who they are and understand those beliefs and those values for themselves. I think it's so important that they they have that safety in themselves and in their own family to be like, "Am I gonna do that or am I gonna skip it?" Is
Right.
this part of who I am and who I want to be, or do I skip it? And I think that's where a lot of it comes from. For us, is that we were just doing whatever everybody else did, and so or people of our generation, I should say,
Yeah.
mostly. Obviously,
Yeah.
not everybody, but, there's, like, that, "Okay, everybody's doing it, I'm just gonna do it," and you just don't question things, and then later
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh, I can't believe I've been doing that since I was 16 or thinking that since I was 14," or whatever, and it's often because of that, right? And so it's just so like, thinking of these little kids that are in the preschool, in the
Mhm.
forest preschool, like, what their life is gonna be like when they're older is, like, so
Yeah.
amazing because their parents are already just, like, opening the kids' minds so much and opening their own minds so much.
I love that, and I think that's what our goal here is at in the Cortex is just to give parents this, like and sometimes parents are like, "Oh my gosh, it's too late. I didn't do it and my kid's 10," or, "Oh my gosh, I missed my window," and there is a more ideal, efficient window to get this stuff in, but it's never too late. It's never, ever too late because there's things that, like, I look at and I'm like, "I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to go
Yeah,
do
me
that
too.
thing at that time, or my child wasn't ready." So whenever you hear this information now, it's like this is your if it's resonating and it's hitting you in a space where you're like, "Oh my gosh, I fully align with what you're saying," then that's your sign you're ready and you're ready to go do something about it. The amount of people that purchase our program because they have that desire that they're like, "I really want the change," and then they purchase it and then they wait 6 months and they're like, "Okay, now I'm ready to dive in," or maybe they wait 2 years. We hear this all the time. I've had your program just, like, sitting in the back of my mind for 2 years, and I finally felt that urge to be like, "Okay, I'm ready now." And it's so important you listen to that readiness, because if not, then it's
1000%.
just like you're grabbing onto something and you're working so hard to try to get something to shift when it's like it's just not ready yet. And that's the bottom line. So, if you're finding yourself being ready to start looking at the programs, I love our process because I don't know anybody else that's doing it in the way we are, where it's literally taking yourself through a process and realizing what's the driving force of this program. And we could take the simple one of like putting on makeup because we talked about that already. And Paloma already nailed it. It was like, well, why were you not just accepting yourself for who you were? Why were you not authentic to who you were being? And then also feeling you got to put a mask on. So then we teach you how to muscle check to find what is the root, what is the actual program you have in place. And ironically, I did with my kiddos, my school kiddos yesterday, we did I Accept Myself
Oh,
as our reconnect
interesting.
yesterday. Yeah, I just realized that.
Wait, that's
And so
crazy.
that was like, and I was like telling them like all this acceptance stuff. And I feel like a lot of times I'm talking to myself because I'm
Yeah,
like, you guys,
clearly.
like you're doing this, but clearly I needed to.
Yeah.
And and so then we do the reconnect for it, and then all of a sudden you just, like, notice that you get on camera the next day and you're like, "Oh, I didn't need makeup," and that's how it weaves into your life, and you just notice that, like, things are just easier, and how many times do you and I go, "That is insane how I ever used to think that."
Yes. Oh
It's
my gosh, we
it's
think this all the time. I literally will look back n a year ago. I'm like, "What? She thought that? Whoa, that's bonkers, bro." Like,
Yeah.
genuinely, no
Yes.
judgment to my old self, but like, girl,
Mhm.
glad I'm here now. Like, it's so interesting, and it's so but again, it's gonna happen tomorrow. I'm gonna look at me today, be like, "What? Like, you were thinking that?" Like, it's so funny. And I think that's the main thing that we do is we take it all very lightly. Like, it's very we give it levity because some of this stuff can be really, really, really profound,
Mm. Mhm.
really deep, and it is some serious stuff, right? And a lot
Yeah.
of it,
Yeah.
not accepting yourself, like right now we're talking about makeup and it might seem like something silly, but it's something really profound in your day-to-day
Yeah.
life, in your
Mhm.
actual DNA, right? And so and it can start to translate to all these different parts of your life and of your world and of your relationships and of your work and of whatever. So I think something that we do is we encourage people to just take it lightly when you can and do what you can, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that's another piece that, again, it's society's expectations. I have to do everything. I discovered this new program. I know I have a disorganized brain. Now I have to do all of my program, blah, blah. And we were talking about this in the last podcast, I think, where it's like
Yeah.
people will reach
Yeah.
out to us and be like, I'm such a bad student. I'm so sorry. Please don't
Mhm.
hate me. I'm like, I love you. Just because you're listening to this,
Yeah.
I love you. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Please listen to yourself, listen to your guidance, listen to your own body, because I don't have your body, I don't have your brain, I don't know what's going on there. There's
Mhm.
no pressure on our end to do it. What
Mm-mm.
we want is for you to be able to sit
Mhm.
with yourself and feel out, "Okay, this is the route for me. This is the route for that. Now I'm gonna go do this." Go back to basics, go back to that intuitive feeling because, again, we're animals.
Right.
A mama orangutan isn't like, "Oh, wait, let me see what the other mama orangutans do. Are they cool? Am I cool to hang out with?" Okay, maybe a little bit, but, like, not in, like, the biological things that they do with their babies, like, the way that they go and get food. I mean, they just do what they do because they're following their intuition, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And, of course, it's part of our lives to want to belong to a group because we're in a society and we live in communities, and
'Cause we're
that's
animals.
fine, right? We are
Yeah.
animals, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's like the orangutan obviously
Mhm.
wants to be a part of
Yeah.
their community, but
Yeah.
ultimately, all of this comes down to you being able to just live the way that we're all intended to live. And is it gonna be 100%? No, because the society is cray cray and, like, the way that we've evolved and technology and all the things that are happening around us is way more than our brain is designed to handle, but that's why we need this more than ever right now. We need this bandwidth more than ever. We gotta use all of the tools that we possibly can to be able to handle all the things that are going on in our lives right now, and we've talked about this before. Today in today's world, we will hear the same amount of information in one day than people used to hear in their whole lifetime or learn in their whole lifetime 500 years ago. Like,
That's
just
crazy.
that, right? Leave the
Mhm.
screens to aside, technology, all this stuff, just the
Mhm.
amount of information that we have, right?
It's
through the
crazy.
screens and the technology, but,
Right.
that is just so, so enormous, and it's so much more than our brain is designed to handle, and so that's
Well,
why
to
we
think,
encourage
yeah.
everybody to use their tools, right? And to be able to
Right.
be their own captain in terms of
Yeah.
how they help themselves and how they set themselves up for success and for being themselves in this world, because we need to stop outsourcing everything, right? That's
Mm.
why we say you have the tools, we're just showing you how to use them. Take them, use them, grow your bandwidth, live your life. It's gonna be our new motto.
Yes, write that down. No, but it's so true because if you don't have tools, you revert back to these survival mechanisms, and the survival mechanisms aren't that great unless you're in a true survival situation. And in today's world, most of us aren't in a true survival situation. I'm emphasis on most of us. Okay, I know there's a lot of nuances within all the stuff that's happening in the world today. And I also wanted to say that if you are always reverting back to these survival mechanisms, like, so for mine, I would just cry. Like, mine was crying. I cried about everything and I would just freeze and I didn't know what to do. So then I would always have people step in and tell me what to do. And so then I relied on this sense of like, well, I don't know what to do. And I didn't
Mhm,
have an intuition that was ever connected to anything that was truly who I wanted to be. Because I was always told what to do, people always telling me my reactions were not okay. And
mm-mm,
so I was so freaking lost. And so when we're navigating through this world now, and the amount I can feel myself so different in my body is crazy. And I used to always think like, "Oh, I'm super connected to my body," but now even more so, I'm like, I am so connected to who I am, and I know
mm,
that someone's outside opinion is not gonna influence me anymore. And that was a really big breakthrough moment for me in this journey, was just not caring what someone else thought about me and realizing that whatever they had to say about me was just a reflection of them, because that's what I would do to somebody else, right? Like, any judgments we give to people is really our judgment about ourselves. And so once I had that realization and I was able to just like not care anymore, I noticed how secure I felt in myself. And that was safety, right? So it's like I'm actually feeling safe in who I am. And then now I notice so many people, and it seems to be this really crazy theme in my life where so many people are telling me how insecure they are, or they're showing me how insecure they are. And I think you can just watch someone in their behaviors and just see like all the insecurities they have, where they're like caring if that person said something a specific way. And I notice the amount of times now where I'm in a situation, and I used to do this a lot. I mean, even like last year, I would still do it. And I was like, God, that person was so rude to me. And they're like, no, they really weren't. And I was like, oh, that was just my take. Okay, got it. But I notice now when people were in the same situation, they're like, oh my gosh, that was such a blah, blah, blah scene. And I was like, I don't know, I didn't feel that. Like, I actually didn't feel that. And I'm like, but it's because now I've never been more connected to myself and my intuition and my inner guidance. And before, I used to have to rely on the experts because I didn't know what the heck was happening in me. And so that's what this program is designed to do, is to help you peel back the programs that are not trusting yourself, not letting you have that true instinct of, this is my next step. And then trust, if you have a spiritual practice, trust something that's bigger and better than you to like help guide you along the way. And that is where I find myself finally able to accept all of the inner knowing and not needing to call Paloma every 5 seconds, be like, "Do you think this is what I should do next?" And now I can just tell Paloma, "I'm probably gonna say this one thing, but I'll probably change my mind in, like, 5 minutes," because I like to change my mind all the time. Because I like to go off of vibes, and, like, things are shifting constantly, and there's new information coming to me constantly. And I like to just be like, "Oh, okay, now I'm feeling this way, and now I'm feeling that way." But knowing that about myself and knowing that I like to be in the flow is something that used to be like, I would get in trouble for it. People would literally be mad at me for changing my mind all the time. And I was like, I get it. It is annoying for a lot of people, but it's not being true to me if I don't listen to that, you know? So I think that's what this whole process is learning how to really get in touch with ourselves and our intuition. And I just think it's amazing. We're in such a cool time where so many people are doing this. Like, it's not just us anymore. And it never was just us, but it felt like us for a long time when we would
yeah,
talk about what it was like to shift and organize your brain. I think it's such a beautiful time to be alive right now, where there's so many people having these conversations. And it feels like we are all on this amazing journey together. It's no longer the crazy woo-woo people thinking like energy something. It's actually like becoming more normalized. And to have this conversation and have this podcast is amazing. And I love in the Cortex tools because they're applicable and they're practical and 4-year-olds can do them.
That's the whole point.
2-year-olds can do them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole point, is to make something that makes sense, and yeah, we're always gonna repeat the same message is do what you can, do it when you can, and when you're drawn to it, right? Because the tools are yours and the change will be yours. It's not ours, right? And I think that that's the biggest thing is when you think you have that practitioner thing where you're like, "Oh no, I didn't do this. Oh no, what are they gonna think of me?" Somebody and I know this is true for so many practitioners that I even go to, like my acupuncturist or the person that gives me like massages, like if I come up to them and I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry I didn't do my massages," or I haven't been eating everything hot to my acupuncturist, he's gonna be like, "Okay, lie down." Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that's
Yeah.
kind of the same thing where it's like, "It's fine. We're not judging you. We're here when
Mhm.
you need us." And that's kind of the cool thing, and
Yeah.
that's where we're the people that we're saying, "We don't want you to need us anymore." You need us, we're
Right.
obviously 100% here, and that's part of the
Mhm.
point, is for our members to know that they can always reach out to us, and we're gonna be here to guide them, and yeah, there might be some moments that get a little bit rocky, and then sometimes they're not rocky, and we don't hear from people from a year, and then a year later, they're like, "Hey, how's it going? This thing came up. I'm wondering if you can help me." And we're like, "Yeah, of course we can. We love it," right? So, it's kind
Mhm.
of both parts of that are really cool for us. It's both just to help guide people and also to just see them kind of go do their thing and live their
Mhm.
life the way they want.
Yes, and not put so much weight on having to do everything perfect, and I think this is one of the big things we're teaching our brain coaches that we're training right now is how to feel the nuances, how to know when to guide, how to know when to pull back, how to know not to take it personal, how to know how to work through your own stuff as you're working with people, and I think that's something that we are very in tune to and very much push ourselves for is, like, when we're working with somebody, if I notice that someone triggers something in me, I'm like, "Oh, I immediately need to go do a reconnect for that. I need to go reconnect that back
1,000.
into whatever I need it to be so that way I can be a better guide for people." And I think that's what this is all about, and I think it doesn't have to be that hard. I think that's what I really want to possibly end this with is what we're asking people to do is so incredibly doable, and I think a lot of people think it's one more thing. You already hit another program that just came through, right? Where you're like, "I have to do all the things," and we're like, "No. Our program, we ask you for 20 minutes a day, and it doesn't even have to be a consecutive 20 minutes. It's literally 5 minutes, maybe, couple minutes here, couple minutes there. Everything can be broken up to work into your life." And I can get while I'm making breakfast, I have my kids doing their brain work before we go to school. I
Mhm.
have 18 kids I work with. We're all doing a reconnect together in a circle. We're all muscle checking together. We're all doing this like really cool process together, and it just becomes a part of our day. And I think when you learn how to make it a habit, and you learn I think that's the key is when you habituate it and you just work it into your lifestyle, it becomes not something that adds to your to-do list. It's just something you do like brushing your teeth, putting on your shoes, getting out the door to go wherever. And I
Yeah.
always think about it like I'm literally doing reconnects in the car before we go to something that's new and unfamiliar and let's get our systems primed for it. And I think that's just what we want to teach parents is it's so simple to weave this into your life. Sometimes we make it not easy. Sometimes we make it way harder than it is. And like so many of our members are like, I just can't do it at my house because my floors are so dirty. And then I have to go sweep my floors. And we just had a member tell us that was one of her biggest blocks. And she just noticed herself crawling through her crumbs on her floor. And
Yeah.
she was like, you guys, this is a breakthrough because I used to let those crumbs stop me from doing the
Yeah.
things I needed to get done. And she's like, and once I was able to finally just like push through it, like quite literally push through the crumbs, then all of a sudden I could just tackle the crumbs and tackle cleaning the floor when it worked for me. Instead of making that the thing stopping me from doing the next thing that I wanted to do to feel better. Cause it's all about breaking these loops. And that's what a program is. It's just this feedback loop that keeps us going on and on and on and not being able to get off and look at it and go, why was I stuck on that hamster wheel?
Well, it's because also the brain prefers that
Familiar.
loop because
Mhm.
familiar, right? It prefers
Mhm.
anything that it already knows. So anything new that we're adding, and again, anybody that's listening to this probably has done something new in the past couple years of like, oh, this new health thing, I'm going to stop eating this. I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to add this to my routine. I'm going to remove that. Now I got to do this in the morning. Now I got to do that. I mean, genuinely, there's so many things, and I know, but this is the point is that the reason that they feel so new and so difficult is because our brain is so deep into our what it already knows, right? And bringing it out of that doesn't have to be that hard because it doesn't have to be every day, by the way. If you can't do it every day, do it every other day. Do it 3 times a
Mhm.
week. Do whatever works for you because the neurons are still firing together, right? And that's how they wire together. And that's the point of all of this stuff, right? And getting out of that, getting out of your own way starts with helping your brain have that flexibility to be able to go into the unknown without being terrified and without going back to your old coping mechanisms, right? I just had a person yesterday that I had a session with who was like, oh, I had a really tough week. I had so many things. I got off so late every single day. And so that's why I didn't do my brain work. And I'm like, and he's like, I know that's when I should have been done doing it. And I'm like, I never said should. I never said, but it certainly is something that's gonna help you in those situations in the future, right? So, it's just that thing, and he's like, now I know that it's yes, maybe it takes a little bit of that time, but I'm gonna waste that time being stressed out about something else later anyway. So maybe it's hard for us sometimes to understand that dedicating this little tiny amount of time to it before in the morning, or sometimes people do it in the afternoon, in the evening, that's fine, right? But dedicating this time is buying you so much more time because getting you so much more bandwidth in your day-to-day life.
That is honestly everything right
It.
there
Yeah.
is when you dedicate, and I know we always think like, I don't have 10 minutes, I don't have 20 minutes. And I'm like, did you just scroll on TikTok or Instagram for an hour or two? So
Yeah.
it's really funny because yes, we all have the same amount of time, what's even time at this point, in our day. But so we all have the same amount of time in our day to get the things done. And this is one of the programs that I think has really shifted for me and how I see time in general is well, first of all, I used to always walk around immediately saying everything was so hard. And Paloma did call me out a long time ago. And that really was a revolutionary moment where I was like, yeah, I'm making it hard. I'm making everything hard because if something is hard already, then it's okay that I don't do it because
Yeah.
it was already hard. It was already above what I could already do. So if I already say that this thing is hard, then I'm off the hook. So, but then when I started shifting that and realizing this, and I think we all do this, especially people who are in relationships, you always like when you're with the other person, you expect them to do whatever.
Mm,
And then if they don't do the thing, then you're like, "Oh, well, I didn't do it either." And then you guys start
yeah.
getting into that back and forth of, "Well, why didn't you do it? Well, why didn't you do it?" And then when you're by yourself and you have, let's say, all the kids to yourself and you're in charge of getting them to whatever, the park, you notice that your mind is able just to get it and happen so much easier when you're not expecting someone else to help you out in
Mhm.
that situation. That's happened to me so many times. And I realize now in my life how many things I'm juggling. And I'm like, I've never been more chill. Like, I'm not even anxious. I would have been a stress case before. But now I just go, oh, I can do all these things. I can do everything because I can just step into it and just make it happen. And that was a program that shifted for me where I just started taking charge. But it was because I was ready in my life to do it, and I had to have a regulated nervous system to get me there, because I really felt like I was faking it. I was like, "Oh, yeah, I can do that stuff," and I knew internally I was so disorganized that, like, my brain would always be like, I can't function out how to make that thing happen."
Yes, there
And
you go.
now it's just so much easier, and it's because I spend the 20 minutes here and there, and we're down to 1 day a week doing our brain work, and we only just brought that back, like,
Yeah,
not even that long ago, and that's the goal is but I do reconnects often. That is
yeah,
one thing that I'm
me too.
never stopping on at least a 3 to 4 day a week basis, and, it's just something that is like, I wish more people knew how simple it really could be,
Mhm.
and I can relate 100% because I just started meditating. I used to think that was, like, the hardest thing in the entire world, and now I just sit and do it, and I'm so
Yeah.
excited about it, and I'm like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
it's not hard."
It's really not that hard, yeah. Indeed.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, I think that's all we have to talk about today.
Think so too.
I mean, we could keep going, but we won't.
We won't,
But
we
if you
shan't.
ever, yeah. But if you have any questions about our program, our offerings, or anything, we always offer a free 15-minute phone call. And it's talking to one of us, and we are open to talk about anything.
Bring it.
Let us know what questions you have, how we can support you. Is our program a fit for you? Would it work for you guys? And our answer is always a yes, and we show you how to do that part. So reach out to us, schedule that free call. And if you're ready to sign up, we encourage you to do that. We'll drop a link in the show notes. You can sign up with a discount code and let us know if you have any questions. You can reach us at hello@inthecortex.com, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.